चलोगे? आवाज आ रही है? ठीक है. Hello students, good morning. I myself Nishant Sir and I welcome you on the daily current affairs class from the PLUTUS IAS. So let's start our first topic, which is India's new labor code, transforming the workforce for the modern economy. So first of all, this topic is directly connected to the labor laws, and you very well know and you very well aware about this thing that UPSC is directly linked to this labor codes or labor law. Questions are like from labor laws, from social securities, from workforce reforms for ease of doing business, from gig economy, like that, etc., etc. And terms which were used in UPSC, CSC mains as well as Prelims also, which are national floor wage, gig workers, EPFs, ESICs, fixed terms employment, inspector cum facilities. So these all are topic directly connected to this labor code. Now let me know about let me connect this topic directly why this is in news. Okay, why this topic is in news? Because India has seen the biggest historical jump in employment rate or in employment rate, right? Unemployment and employment, it is bifurcated to two different terms, right? So India saw a historical jump. India saw a historical jump in employment rate from 47.5 crores in 2017 to directly 64.17 crores in 23-24, adding newly job of around 16.83 crore job created in this span of time, right? So this is a significant change. Now, if we see that there is job creation now, the unemployment rate is cutting 6% to near about 3.2%. Okay. So as we see over here, the unemployment rate is also seen as decreases, sharp decreasing chart. We see over here, like from 6% to directly 3.2%. Okay, so एक sharp decrease देखा आपने. There is a sharp decrease. We also see in this topic, we see also 1.56 women are employed in the 16.83. So we see a new phase, like there is also a women engagement in this unemployment, in this employment rate, major reforms. So government is now implementing the 4 labor codes, consolidating 29 codes law. So before and after, there is a 2 phase in that, where before and after 29 laws are consolidated directly in 4 codes. ठीक है? So this is the main change. And why this reform was needed? Can anyone say about this thing? Why this reform is needed before and after? Why? First of all, I will write over here. Why this is needed? First point. The first point is multiplicity of law or complexities of law. Laws. First point, complexity of laws. So earlier we see, let me change the color. Yeah. So earlier we see there is 44 union law. Then we will see there is 100 plus, near about 100 plus state law, and it will create what? Confusion, litigation, right? It will create confusion, litigations, registrations norms, very much of too much of separates law over here. Okay, all dealing with similar topics but in a different way. Okay, and this whole thing earlier, this whole thing caused harassment, confusion, duplications, difficulty for workers, huge complication for burdens, huge complications, burden for industries. Right? So this is the major thing. First point. Second point. What is the second challenge which we see in our earlier phases? That is old system. Old system. So how many is like too many laws, old system, like there is one factory. Okay. One factory is equal to and 10 registration forms. Just wait. So there is so much of marking things. Now we see why this is important, because like just we take an example of like an industry. I have an industry of textile. Okay, I have an industry of textile in Tripura. Okay, up now I had to maintain what? Bonus records, which comes under Payment of Bonus Act. First thing, right? The second point is I have to maintain the Minimum Wage Act, which is registered in Minimum Wage Act. The third thing, equal pay. I have to kept all the records of equal pay, which comes under Equal Remuneration Act. Another thing, I have to collect all the data from the payment registrars, whatever the payment I received. So, which is under the Payment and Wage Act. So, all four overlaps on wage, but also separate indicators or separate inspectors. Right? So, this is the main issue. And after that, we see when we collide all the laws, or after we merge into 4 codes, it will a single registration. First thing. Okay. single licensing, second thing, single return, third thing. Okay, so this is the major shift, which reduced the cost near about 35 to 40% of entrepreneur or enterprises, right? Which gives ease of doing business, right? And we are over here, the old system, and let us or let we connect this old system to the colonial era. Okay, the colonial era. Up now, in this colonial era, how we connect all these things? Because major laws, the major laws were formed in British era. Okay, now we see the British era term. Okay, the British era. Just wait for a moment. एक second, guys. Okay, yeah. So in British era, we see lots of rules or many labor laws were formed in this British era. Like Factory Act, we can see the Factory Act. Right? So Factory Act 1948, first. Trade Union Act 1926. Uh, Payment of Wage Act 1936. Industrial Dispute Act 1947. So these laws are directly assumed as like employer is equal to mill owner. This point. Worker is equal to factory laborers. But in today's world, we see all the differences like gig workers, IT startups, e-commerce, online platform. So a complete outside the old framework, a complete shift in the old framework. Yeah. Like just take an example, like a Zomato delivery worker didn't exist in this laws, old laws. A Zomato delivery worker didn't exist in this laws, right? No social securities, first of all, no insurance, no FPs, no gratuity, no safety cover, nothing. But after these things, after the reforms, after all the new codes, it includes gig plus platform workers. For the first time, it will we see this gig workers are also including in these things. So, a modern definitions for workers is work from home, fixed term employment, digital records. Now, the third thing, let me connect it to your. Okay. The third thing, which is also a challenge for us, like rigid labor market. What is the rigid labor market? It is a lower investment side. But restriction, retrenchment links or retrenchment limits, right? So if a company had 100 plus workers, it needed to a government permissions to lay off, retrench, shut unit. Okay, almost no permission were granted. Investor fear hiring permanent workers. Right? A data for this is India's manufacturing share stuck at 15 to 17% of GDPs for decades, many decades. Right? Why? What is the reason? Of rigid labor laws. Rigid labor laws. Right? Let's suppose an example of a toy company in Noida. Right? A toy company in Noida stayed below 90 workers. Okay? From past 10 years to avoid all the compliance ruling. Many companies do these things. So these whole are coming from the rigid laws. So no job growth, right? After this codification, there is a three threshold, like directly 100 to 300, 100 to 300. So there is a job creation. There is a job creation. Fixed term employment. A fixed term employment allows companies to hire for short term projects. It will help companies as well as workers also. It will give a result like Rajasthan. First to rise, just wait, guys. Yeah. So like Rajasthan, first to rise in 2014, there is a saw employment rise in near about 35%. First point, 2014. So we see there is a fact by a medium of factory, there is a rise in employment rate after this codification. Next thing, informality. India has a biggest problem of this informality. 90% of workers in India are informal, as we all know. Right? No PFs, no ESIC, no paid leave, no job security, no accident insurance, nothing. A construction workers like in Mumbai earning 500 per day, right? But with no PF, no medical insurance, no identity, no pensions. Right? So after this social security code, it will give him what a universal social security. First thing. Second, a mandatory registrations for unorganized sector or unorganized worker. Accident during community physical to work accident. Right? समझ में आ रहा है? Social security fund creation. Gig worker got into a welfare net. Welfare net. So these all are the main or biggest challenge for us. That's why we need this four labor codes, and we merge all these things. Like rise of gig platforms economy. Earlier there is no legal status in that. Need for ease of doing businesses. Like single online returns, single licensing, online inspection, digital payments of wages, decriminalization of offences, self-certifications allowed. So you see how after the merger of this laws, we see a sharp drift, and we all see 16.3 16.5, near about 16.5 crores job creation. Now, let us connect this thing. How we connect this thing? Next to the major part of this topic, the four labor codes. Now, the four labor codes. First of all, let's say like Code of Wage Act 2019. It will consolidate four acts. What are these four acts? First, Minimum Wage Act. Second, Payment of Wage Act. Third, Payment of Bonus Act. Right? And the last is Equal Remuneration Act. Okay. So these all four are consolidated in Code of Wage Act. We see over here, Payment of Wage Act 1936, Minimum Wage Act 1948, Payment of Bonus Act 1965, and Equal Remuneration Act 1976. The key provisions for this is universal minimum wage, earlier only for the scheduled employment. Now all workers are covered in this, like organized and unorganized sector both. Right? Second thing is national floor wage. Right? First of all, central said this thing, state cannot go below it. And now, central also fixed this, and state also. Third thing, Acha, let me give you take one question for a true or false. Okay. Just give me in a comment section. There's a, I will give you a sentence. Give me the answer for this thing. Right? So, right, national floor wage is determined by the central government and is binding on state. True or false? True or false? Well, it is false. It's not binding legally. Okay? States are encouraged to follow it, but legally they cannot fix its own minimum wage. Understand? So this is not a binding thing. समझ में आया? ऐसे क्वेश्चन पूछते हैं यूपीएससी ट्रू और फॉल्स में कनेक्ट कर देगा इसी टॉपिक को अगर सेंटेंस वाइज में बना दो तो पूछ सकता है यूपीएससी now let's come to the topic so first key provision we see universal minimum wage second is national floor wage third is gender neutral provisions equal pay for men women transgender okay fourth thing is fixation of wage now the fixation of wage are covered based on their skill category geographical hazardous level right so these are terms under the Code of Wage Act. Now, second thing, which is mandatory overtime. Some points are there. Mandatory overtime 2 into normal plus wage plus minus 2 into normal plus wage. Okay. Another thing is decriminalization. Under this decriminalization, we can say the fine instead of imprisonment, it is equal to encouragement compliances. So this is directly connected to the means. UPSC asks for this type UPSC CSC plus EPFO. And we see there is a prelims examination on 30th of November for this topic. So this is very much important because it directly enhance the minimum wage guarantee or reduce inequality. Two topics are directly connected to your mains. It helps achieve the SDGs Goal 8, decent work and economic growth. Support formalizations of labor market. Right? So directly these topics आपके यहाँ से connect हो रही है. Next thing is Industrial Relations and Code 2020. It will consolidate 3 acts majorly. What are these? Trade Union Act 1926, Industrial Employment Standing Order Act 1946, and the third thing is Industrial Dispute Act 1947. Okay? So these 3 are consolidated in Industrial Relations Code 2020. What are the major provisions and the UPSC linkages for this topic? Is fixed term employment FTE, which says that a contract employees with full parties with permanent worker. Okay, understood? The gratuity after 1 year, it will follow this thing: a fixed term employment gratuity after 1 year plus full parity. Okay, which directly connected. This law is directly connected. Directly connection of monetizing of employment. Support essential industries. Reduce informal hirings. Right? It will direct linkage. Second is layoff. Layoff. Just holderized. Right? Near about 100 to 300 workers. So what are the implications? It's industries get flexibility, it will boost of ease of doing business. When industries get flexibility, it automatically goes ease of doing business. Trade union oppose citing jobs insecurities. So it is a balance perspective which we need from the trade union point of view plus ease of doing business point of view. A mandatory strict notes or notice like 14 days prevention, sudden prevention strikes. First thing, ensure continuity of operations. So this is under this act. Recycling fund. So reskilling fund. Reskilling fund. What is this reskilling fund? 15 days wage for enrichment workers. Okay. Another thing is recognitions of trade union. 51% of member is equal to sole negotiating union. In a company where 51% of the workers are member of the trade union, it will a sole negotiating union. Direct tribunal access after 90 days. Faster settlements. Reduce pendencies. Like a graph, huh? You see over there. Faster settlements. ये increase होगा. क्या reduce होगा? Dependency. Dependency will reduce. Right? This all actually support for Make in India, contribute to labor market flexibility, directly connected to your GS3. Help shift from informal to formal jobs. Right? Now, the next code is Code on Social Security Act 2020. This is it consolidated 9 acts: EPI, ESI, maternity benefits, gratuities, workers' compensations, etc., etc. Right? Yeah. EPFX, ECIC, Maternity Benefits, Payments of Gratuity Act, Worker Compensation Act, VOCW Case Act, Signed Worker Act, Employment Exchange Act. Please do this very carefully for your EPFO examination, which is on 13th of November. Near about 10 to 12 questions is directly come from the Code of Social Security Act 2020. Okay? हाँ, clear है exam? नहीं, सिर्फ करना है। इसलिए के बारे में मांझी की तरह जब तक ये तोड़ेगा नहीं तब तक ये छोड़ेगा नहीं। Next देना चाहिए वैसे। ठीक है, चलिए। So what are the key provisions in that? The key provision is universal social security for organized worker, unorganized worker, gig workers, platform workers. This is the first Indian law to recognize a gig worker. A gig worker. Okay. A gig worker platform working social security. Aggregators like Swiggy, Zomato, Ola, Uber must contribute 1 to 2% of their turnover to these gig workers. Okay. ESIC cover, ESI cover expanded overhead like across entire India. Easy volunteer enrollment, EPF reforms, inquiries capped off at 5 years, appeals deposit capped of 25%, gratuity of fixed term works after 1 year, earlier 5 year का था, पहला 1 साल का कर दिया. Accident during community worker accidents. Huge of informal and contract workers. So these all norms are directly connected to whom. Like first, addressing your social security gap between the workers and the organizers. Critical for economy resilience and labor dignity. Most important one, labor dignity. Directly aligned with the International Labour Organization (ILO), the conventions principles. So this is most important at unorganized workers, gig economies. Up now this occupational safety and health working conditions code, right? It will consolidate 13 acts like Factory Act, Mine Act, Contract Labor Act, ISW Act, yeah, Motor Transport Act, Interstate Migration Worker Act, Bosco's Act. What are the key provisions in that? The key provisions is safety and working condition standards. The safety and working condition standards is like for factories, minings, for constructions, for journalism, for motor transport, for plantations. There's also a interstate migrant worker protections, which covers like journey allowances, mandatory registrations, portability of benefits. Just hello. Yes. Now the single registration plus single licensing over here. The single registration and the single licensing, which we covered over here to aim human to promote ease of doing business, reduce compliances burden, A mandatory health checkup also over here. What are the mandatory? A free annual checkup for workers. Digital compliances. What are the digital compliances in that? It will reduce time records, algorithm based inspections, which aim to reduce workplace accidents. In India is a high India has high accident rate, right? Support women workers via safety provisions. Right. Align India with global OSD standards. Right. So this all over impact on labor codes. What are the impacts and the all over impacts of the labor codes? Huh? The overall impact in the law, there is two things. First of all, there is a concern balances. There is something more about that thing. We can see over the impact. Impact is like a relative impact or negative impact. Yeah. Now, let us discuss first of all the positive acts. What are the positive impact in this thing? The positive impacts are boost manufacturing. First point, which flexibility, the hiring, firing, IR codes, attract investments. Right? Second thing, boost of manufacturing even first. Second thing. Yeah. The second thing is what? Formalization of worker. So second thing is formalization of workers. Formalization of workers. Mandatory registration, social security, wage reforms are coming under this formalization of worker. Okay? Formalizations of worker. Third thing is ease of doing businesses. Ease of, ease of doing businesses. Right? Another thing is universal social protections. No, first of all, ease of doing businesses. What are the single licensing, single return, digital compliances, right? These are directly connected to this. Another thing is universal social protections. Fourth point. Universal social protection. Now, the universal social protection, what are here? The key provisions is like for gig workers, platform workers. Okay, so it includes all the working professions. Another thing is promotes women's participation. Fifth point, promote women participation. Okay, so these are the positive things, positive impact of this four codes. Now the concerning area. First, risk. In which form? Risk of labor exploitation. Risk of labor exploitation, like higher threshold for enrichment, like 100 to 300 may lead to job insecurities. कर सकते हैं ना, क्योंकि ज्यादा आएंगे तो निकाल भी सकते हैं। सबको पता है जॉब की इनसिक्योरिटी रहेगी इस चीज में, राइट? तो वो चीज आप नहीं तो कोई दूसरा अच्छा काम कर लेगा, ऐसा कर लेगा, तो वो चीज की एक जॉब इनसिक्योरिटी रहती है ना। Another point is gig worker protection is still weak. और लिख लो weak gig worker protection, like it only contribute 1 to 2% of your turnover only. Implementation depends on states. Third thing, implementation depends on state. In this implementation depends on state, we see there is a labor is a concurrent list subject. This is a major loophole. Why? Because it is a concurrent subject where state plus union both make law. समझ में आया? तो इम्प्लीमेंटेशन कौन कर रहा है? स्टेट कर रहा है, जहाँ पे वीक हो गई सेंट्रल अलग बता रहा है, स्टेट अलग बता रहा है, होती है ना? समझ में आता ही है आपको इस चीज का तो। Another thing is social security fund ambiguous. No clear structure yet. This is the main ambiguous. Another point. Critics for race to the bottom. State may lower standard to attract industries. अब ये स्टेट ज्यादा दे रहा है, वो इसको ऐसा कर रहा है, ऐसा कि फॉर एग्जांपल यूपी में ज्यादा मिल रहा है, चलो थोड़ा और हम कर लो, एमपी कम देने लग गया, बिहार ज्यादा करने लग गया। तो इन चीजों की लोअर स्टैंडर्ड्स इंडस्ट्रीज को अट्रैक्ट करने के लिए है ना। लाइक वी सी इन यूरोप there is a high social security, strong unions. In USA, there is more flexibility, less protection. India model is equal to hybrid, protection plus flexibility plus formalization. We are always playing like a balance field. Okay, so these all are the factors for this thing. And what was the conclusion for this topic is establishment of a new labor code make a transformative step in India's labor landscape, one that balances the welfare of workers with the efficiency of enterprises. These provisions simplify compliances, promote safety, and ensure fairness in wage. Moreover, these reforms lay the foundation for a more equitable, transparent, and growth oriented economy. They reaffirms India's commitment to fostering a modern labor ecosystem that empower both workers and industries, paving the way for inclusive and sustainable progress. So, this is a conclusion for your mains answer right here. Okay, and let us see. A prelims question for this topic is what? Consider the following statement regarding India's new labor law. The Code of Wage introduced a universal minimum wage applicable to both organized and unorganized work sector. It is a right sentence. The Industrial Relations Code mandatory a 14-day notice paid before strike and lock out, as we see earlier. It is also a right sentence. The code on Social Security 2020 extended Social Security benefits to gig and platform worker for the first time. It is also a right sentence. To all three are rights. There is a fourth statement. So the OSHW code provides for a single registration and common licensing for restricted. Yeah, it is general stipend, right? So D is the right answer for this question. Next, there is also 15 marker question for you guys to write on this means question. The four labor codes mark a major reform in India's labor governance framework. Discuss their significance for employment generations, worker welfare, and ease of doing businesses. There are three demand. What are the three demand for this question? Is first is employment generation, second worker welfare, and third is ease of doing business. Directly interconnect this whole thing for the labor governance via this four labor code. Okay, so that's all in today's current affairs classes. Thank you and have a nice day, students.
You are currently the only person in this conference.